is a game that I don't think anyone is going to question or think, well, gee, I wonder why Phil has this one on his list. This game, interestingly enough, was made by a former game developer who used to work for Rockstar. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. The game that we're about to talk about is Mind's Eye. And for those who don't remember, and by the way, pay no attention to the man standing behind me. For those who don't remember, Mind's Eye was a game that was actually heavily hyped, that it may be the new game to take over for Grand Theft Auto. It's going to be an open world adventure featuring technology and mystery and all kinds of fun gameplay elements. And then the game actually came out. And when it did, what we all found out is that Mind's Eye was an atrocious mess. The game itself was not polished in any way whatsoever. It had huge physics problems. It had tons of boring, repetitive gameplay. It had NPCs doing some kind of weird slide across the floor like they were Iceman from X-Men. Cars disappearing. Things exploding, launching into the air. The game was obviously completely and utterly unfinished. It made no sense that they even released it. And by the way, this is a full retail release game. This one was sold for like $60, $70 plus tax. This is not, oh, this is an indie game that was sold for a discounted rate. I mean, take a look at the physics here. Just clobbering a giant truck and the thing flies like it's made of paper mache. And a very empty, broken, unfinished game with a world that's not engaging at all. And the fact that they tried to charge full price for it, most people saw right through it. Now, I bought it just on curiosity's sake. And man, we only got like maybe 4 or 5 hours in. And it was just, I've had enough. Like, there's no point to even play this. There was actually an entire stealth mission based on sneaking into like a prison, getting an item and getting out. It was one of the most boring things I'd ever done in my life. And I gave up. So Mind's Eye, a very, very good example of a game that really didn't live up at all to any of the hyper expectations that have been played out for it. If anything, what this proves is that just because someone who worked on a game actually worked at a game studio that was prominent does not mean in any way, shape, or form that the game is going to be good. Yeah, they had the idea of what an open world sandbox game should be, but it doesn't mean that the one that they make is going to be a good one. And it was a huge, huge waste of money and a ripoff. Actually made by a well-respected game developer. This is a developer that actually in the past had made quite a lot of great games and was kind of like resting on those laurels, looking down memory lane and saying, hey, look at what we did in the past. Here's our next new offering. Come out and check it out. So I did. And when I did, there was actually a lot of things about the game that I enjoyed. But at the same time, there was one glaring, really huge flaw. Ladies and gentlemen, next on my list, the most disappointing games of 2025 countdown. Someone already guessed it. You guessed it. Avowed. So, Avowed is made by Obsidian. Obsidian is the studio that made Fallout New Vegas, one of the most highly respected games that has ever come out. And we still wish that there would be another one, right? Sadly, Bethesda's doing pretty much nothing with Fallout besides making a TV series right now, which is great, by the way, but we want more Fallout. Well, Obsidian needs something else to do. So they decided to make their own open world fantasy game in the style of, say, the Elder Scrolls. And as you can see, at face value, the game doesn't look half bad, does it? The graphics are pretty good. The movement, the gameplay elements, the leveling system. In fact, I would argue that if you just play Avowed and explore, you're actually going to have quite a lot of fun, because I did, just kind of messing around in the world. I played this game for, I want to say around 12 hours, and I pretty much ignored the story, and I just ran around the open world and messed around with exploration and the like. And every time that I did that, I actually had quite a lot of fun. The open world itself is well designed, looks really good, and just in general is a great time to kind of mess around in. The IP. So they just turned it into its own thing. And that's basically why it sucked. Now, if you like exploration and side questing, I actually recommend it. But I'm just going to warn you, whenever you get to the story, you're going to be terribly bored. I was, and pretty much everyone who played this game was. That's the major problem with the game. All right. This style of game I have played in the past, and I've been able to turn, how can I say, coal into diamonds. I've been able to make a game that maybe other people found boring, very entertaining through my commentary. Ladies and gentlemen, this game was one that even I couldn't save in any way, shape, or form. Some of you have no idea what I'm talking about, and you're probably better off for it. The game that I'm about to tell you about, in my opinion, isn't anyone's good use of time, and if you skipped it last year, be thankful. Ladies and gentlemen, the game next on my countdown of most disappointing games is Lost Records, Bloom and Rage. So, the whole narrative-based choose-your-own-adventure style game is something that I've done in the past. Life is Strange, particularly, is one of the series that I've been able to make some good content out of. This particular game, I feel, took it way too far. So, Lost Records Bloom and Rage is a game that follows 4 teenage girls from all different walks of life who meet each other during this one summertime, and they team up to have kind of almost misadventures. Now, the game's premise is that you're in the future, and these girls have grown up, but they've forgotten actually what happened in the past. They can't particularly actually remember what happened during this particular summer. So they're kind of having like flashback memories and trying to figure out what happened, okay? On the surface, that sounds interesting, doesn't it? Oh, maybe they ran into something crazy, supernatural, or, you know, was it horror themed or something? And the game keeps endlessly teasing at something like that. As you can see, one of the characters has a video camera where she's documenting things with the camera. And that's one of the main gameplay elements of the game, is that you're trying to document as much as you possibly can while investigating what actually happened that summer. The problem is, this game is a huge bait and switch. While it sounds on the surface like it's really good, in reality, it's all just faked. It's just girls who kind of are angsty. And there's entire scenes based around these girls basically doing things. You'd be like, these are teenage girls. Why would they be acting like this? Why would they be doing these risky things? You know what I'm saying? And the writing itself is incredibly cringy. It's written, again, it sounds like the people who wrote the game are trying to either relive a youth that they never lived, meaning they wish this is how their youth was, but it really wasn't. Or they just read a whole bunch of like teen books, novels, and they tried to regurgitate it into like game form. What I'm trying to say is the writing's atrocious. Like, none of the characters are very likable. They're doing risky things teenage girls should never do. And then they're lauded as like heroes in the story. It's like, but they're not. Like, they're actually doing horrible things. Like, if I wouldn't want my teenage daughter watching this game and be like, oh, I want to do that stuff. Interesting story. This is a game that does neither and is just so badly made that I don't think that it should exist. Like, probably gaming would have been better if it was never made. But of course, you're going to have people who are going to be like, oh, well, don't you know that this is important because it's a game for teen girls? No, it's not. Like I said, the girls in this game are not role models at all. They actually make horrible decisions. They take risks they shouldn't take. I wouldn't want anyone, you know, playing this game and thinking this is how teens should act. It's actually the opposite. This is like an instruction manual of what not to do. So, yeah, the game sucks. I couldn't even play the second half because I couldn't stomach it. And if you even give it a look, I'm just going to warn you, you're going to feel like you wasted a whole lot of your time. All right. So, sadly, is another example of a company that completely fell off. And when I say that, you might say, I don't know what you mean. Because these AAA game companies are coming out with great games and they keep reporting that they're doing well. The game I'm about to show you in the countdown for the most disappointing games of 2025 is a game that right now, the actual publisher is insisting did well, even though it definitely didn't, okay? They won't report actual sales numbers, but they keep saying the franchise is healthy and alive. They keep saying that this is one of our big poster child kind of things, our big IPs, and every time we're proud of the game. And the actual CEO of the company who made this game actually said, well, we just made a game for gamers, and I don't think that's what people are looking for anymore. Excuse me? You're the CEO of a gaming company, and you think that gamers aren't looking for games for gamers. Then what are they looking for? Anyway, let's just get into it. ladies and gentlemen, I present to you a game that I don't think anyone is going to be shocked is on this listing whatsoever from early 2025. Oops. It's Assassin's Creed Shadows. So, Assassin's Creed Shadows, right from the get-go, already had massive controversy around it because it stars a female ninja, out of which there were probably one ever in history, if ever there was one, and it stars a African samurai. That's correct. Someone of darker skin who is apparently a samurai. And immediately people called this out before the game even came out and said, if you're going to finally have an Assassin's Creed set in Japan, why do you have two protagonists that aren't even stereotypical people from Japan? Like, they're the outliers. They're the exception to the rule. We've been waiting so long for Assassin's Creed to be in Japan. Why not actually have a game that's representative of what would happen in Japan? So, right from the get-go, there was a huge misstep when they made the game. But for me, to be honest with all of you, when I actually bought and played the game, I never even got that far. You might say, well, what do you mean? What you're seeing here is representative of the first 12 hours of Assassin's Creed Shadows. Because in the intro, you only play as Yasuke, the Black Samurai, for about 20 minutes. It goes a little bit of his intro cutscenes, but you never actually really play as him in his story. It just goes right to the female ninja. You're then forced to play her story almost tirelessly and endlessly for about 15 plus hours before the game goes back to Yasuke. And as you can see, this is the gameplay of Assassin's Creed Shadows. Essentially, you go through towns, killing endless amounts of enemies. All you do is sneak around and murder people, grab resources, and take over bases. That's the game. All right? Assassin's Creed used to be, hey, you're an assassin, sneak into town, be very stealthy, go in like a shadow, and kill someone and get out undetected. Bonus points if you're... What happened was the game forced you to get these resources to continue. I'm not kidding. You had a base, and in this home base, you had to grind for resources as if it was like an MMORPG or something. And so you had to keep going back and killing people and trying to loot to get the resources. It was the most boring thing ever in Assassin's Creed. And basically around 15 hours, I said, I'm not playing this anymore. Like, I'm just not having any fun. This isn't what the game's supposed to be. The story, by the way, is very boring. The game takes way too long to go from part to part. The best comparison I can give would be Mafia 3. If you remember in Mafia 3, that was a game that if the story kept moving, it would have been over in 20 hours, but would have been an amazing game. But the game kept padding itself and forcing you to do base takeovers in order to get to the next leg of the story. That's literally what they did with this game 10 years later. It's a game where if you just didn't have to do the grinding, it would probably be fun. But instead, you were so forced to do this repetitive combat and takeovers. It's just not anything interesting at all. I better things to do with my time than do repetitious nonsense over and over. So Assassin's Creed Shadows did poorly. For those who don't know, it actually was a flop for Ubisoft. The game did not sell nearly as well as they had intended for the amount of money and time they put into its development. And then the CEO went on a PR campaign basically saying, well, it's because of people who complained on the internet about the protagonist rather than caring about the game and its elements. It's a game for gamers, and the gamers didn't care because of all the stuff online. No, the gamers didn't care because your game sucks. You've lost your way as a game developer. You're no longer making games for gamers. That's why gamers don't like it. It has nothing to do with the fact that people made us think that the protagonists aren't in line with what probably was happening during this era in Japanese history. It has to do with the fact that the game is fucking boring. No one wants to play another open world Assassin's Creed where we have to waste 10 hours, 20 hours before we get to the next leg of interesting story. You're an idiot. Yves Guillemot. All right. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I checked out a game that was not in my comfort zone whatsoever. You may remember it, you may not. It was called Inzo. And as you can see here, I had a great time playing it wearing my gunner glasses, or actually my aviator glasses. I don't know why I wore those during this particular day. But Inzo was a game that everyone was touting as the modern Sims. This game, you can make a virtual version of yourself, and you could go around town doing stuff like hanging out with other Inzo characters. You can eat, you can drink, you could do activities. You can get a job and work. You could do all of these things. Okay? And when I played the game, I didn't really know what to expect. And at first, I actually was having a lot of fun with this game. The initial, character creation, setting up personality traits, interacting with certain people in town and going and buying food and, checking out what's available in the area. It's pretty good, to be honest. And the graphics, actually, for a sim-style game like this, are actually pretty outstanding. You take a look, I think the game actually looks quite good. But the further I got into Inzo, of the 2 or 3 streams that I did of it, the cracks started to show. For example, I got a job, and then I got in a taxi to go to the job, and this is what happened. Literally, the taxi froze in place, and I was like, what's going on? Why is nothing happening? Why can't I do anything? So come to find out, in the game, half the jobs weren't done. They had sold the game, but half the jobs hadn't been put into it yet. So if you chose an occupation that didn't exist in the game, you would get into a car to go to work and sit in the car all day. Then you would leave the car and earn money for sitting in the car all day. Now, it is my understanding that you were supposed to actually have the job in there and you would do tasks at the job, but they didn't have that in the game yet. Okay? So similarly to this, as I continued to play and do certain things in the game, other things were unfinished. For example, I found out if you go to the theme park, half the rides don't work. Wait, what? So half the jobs aren't in the game, half the rides don't work. What else is unfinished in this game? Well, come to find out, actually, the game is mostly unfinished, but they were selling it for play. Why would you do that? It was very confusing because it didn't feel like the game was anywhere near ready to be sold. If you're getting such an early experience with the game, where you can't even do half the stuff in the game, well, that doesn't seem to make much sense, does it? So for me, I was very, very disappointed with the game. But ultimately, the thing that really got me was what happened at the end of my playthrough, which I'd like to show you right here. Out of nowhere, here's what happened. Phil Burnell has passed away. And as I was playing, we were all trying to figure out what happened. Nothing happened. The game is completely broken, and you just randomly die for no reason. My character wasn't sick. My character wasn't unhealthy. My character was actually fine. There was nothing wrong with my Inzo or Zoe, whatever they were called. They just died out of nowhere. And I tried reloading and replaying. They would always die no matter what at a certain point with no explanation. So there was actually no way to make my character and have them progress past just a few days. It would be instant death for no reason. So the game was literally unplayable because you couldn't get past a couple of days. So at this point, I was like, I'm just not going to play it anymore. Like, it was an interesting idea. It was an interesting thing to try. But man, this thing just doesn't feel like it's finished. It's obviously busted and there's problems. I feel like there are certain games that if I choose to play them, I have to now kind of do like research up front to figure out if a game is going to actually be accepted or do well. You're going to understand what I mean when I show you this game. Ladies and gentlemen, the game that I want to have next in my countdown is one that was one of my shortest playthroughs ever because basically I wasn't allowed to continue. The game that is next is South of Midnight. Okay? So for those who don't know, South of Midnight is a game that was on Game Pass, and it was heavily touted as Xbox Game Studios game. You know, it's going to be an interesting game, and you're going to check it out because it's visual style. As you can see, the colors and everything are kind of almost like a cartoonish, cel-shaded style game. It actually had a soundtrack that was very like Southern music. You know, it took place in the bayou, so very like Southern United States kind of a deal, Louisiana style stuff. So in that regard, the game actually kind of stood out. All right. And I played this game. This is basically the intro hours of the game that you're seeing right here, the tutorial, trying to learn the gameplay mechanics. And honestly, I actually was enjoying the game. I would compare South of Midnight in the time that I spent in it to a PS2 era game. There's some action combat, there's platforming, there's some puzzles and things to solve. Ultimately, I think where the game was shining for me was that it actually had a unique visual style, and also it had a good music, good soundtrack. But the combat itself was kind of simplistic. The platforming was kind of basic. And like I said, I would compare it to an era of like maybe like Sly Cooper or Jak and Daxter or Ratchet and Clank, like a combination of kind of those games, that era of gaming. All right. That doesn't mean the game is bad at all. That's just what the game was, okay? But here's what happened when I played South of Midnight. Started playing the game, and I started to give my honest opinions on it, if I liked it or not. And the audience, during the entire time that I started playing this game, were screaming at me, this game is woke. This game is terrible. It's so leftist. It's so liberal. It's woke. It's woke. And I would turn to the audience and be like, how is it woke? Really, can you explain to me how the game is woke? Because I was playing it, and nothing that was going on in the plot was woke at all. If you think that any game that has an African-American person as the protagonist is woke, you're racist. I'm sorry, you just are. Just solely based on the color of someone's skin doesn't mean that a game is woke. The idea of woke, for those who don't know, is originally that people are supposed to be awoken, taken out of their trance, realizing that there's prejudice in the world and being aware of your surroundings, and then basically taking appropriate actions because of that. So people that were in the woke mentality were people who were supposed to like say, okay, well, I understand that there's certain groups of people that are considered minorities and they don't get equal treatment with everyone else. So we should give them better opportunities and give them assistance and things like that. That's kind of the essence of the woke movement. But what's happened is now the entire thing has changed. And now everyone says that anything that's woke has to do at all with minorities or anything that even involves someone who's black or someone who's, even Middle Eastern and stuff. It's woke now because you have someone who's not white as the protagonist. Okay. That's not true. Sorry. It's just not. Okay. So here I am. I'm playing this game and I'm enjoying the gameplay mechanics. I'm enjoying the soundtrack. I'm enjoying these things. Right. And every time that I keep looking at the chat, it's just, this game's woke. We don't like it. Why are you playing it? And it actually drove me nuts. Like, I'm just trying to enjoy a game on its own merit. Now, very much, maybe the game did actually have woke elements in it, but I certainly didn't even get to them. All right? I was in the tutorial. I was in the first 2 hours of the game. And I couldn't get anyone to engage with this game or even give it a fair shake. People were just so turned off that the main character apparently is woke that I couldn't enjoy it. So after the original stream playing it, I said, listen, this is a game that I was enjoying. I like the platforming elements. I like the exploration. I like the puzzles. I like the combat. I like the music. This is something that I would personally maybe go play, but I guess I just can't stream it, right? Like, I'm not going to stream a game where everyone's going to complain every moment that I play it. So the truth is, all right, I don't know if the game did well or not. From what I'm to understand, it didn't. The game actually, it was a Game Pass game, okay? So it did get some attention for being kind of free on Game Pass or whatever. And some people did play it, right? But it didn't really get most notoriety or whatever. And what's funny is it won the award at the Game Awards for, what was it called? Games for Change or Games for Purpose? What was it? It was basically some kind of a game, one of these awards. And I was like, well, why did it win that award? And I was confused. And people were like, well, they won the award because the protagonist is African American. I said, huh? So again, for the equal reasons that I don't understand why people hated on the game, because the protagonist was African American, I don't understand why the game also won an award because the protagonist is African American. You know what I'm saying? Like, it goes both ways. You shouldn't hate on the game because of that, but you also shouldn't be awarding the game solely on that premise. Was the game good? At this point, I don't even know. I'm so confused. I don't even know. My mind is addled, and I'm like, I don't know. I honestly wish I did play it more, but I'm a streamer who streams things for an audience. I have to play things the audience will show up for and like, and the audience obviously didn't like this. So I was like, well, I guess this is one. I'll take the L, and I guess I'm just not going to play it. But hey, I would say again, if you like games from the PS2 era, and you wanted to play something that was a modern version of that, I feel like it plays like that. I don't know about the story or anything later about it, but I actually was enjoying the game. I was disappointed that my audience basically said, no, we refuse to watch you play this, and I had to basically go on from it and never go back to it. But that's kind of just the thing. When you are a streamer, you have to go with your audience, and sometimes there's games that I like and they don't, and there's just nothing I can really do about it, and it is what it is. Okay? Okay. Moving on. Our next entry in the most disappointing games countdown is another game that sadly I'm pretty disappointed I didn't get to play more of. All right? It's a game that I only played one stream and I was very much enjoying it, but the audience again all complained and said, we don't like this game. But I want to give it a moment in the sun here because I actually think that it's a good game and that you might enjoy it. The game that we're talking about today is called Cast and Chill. Okay? This is very much an indie game. Okay, just to make it abundantly clear. The visual style is pixel art, as you can see. And the whole premise of Cast and Chill is very simple. You go out on a boat with your dog, you cast, you try to catch fish, and you chill. The whole purpose of the game is basically to relax. Now, as you catch different fish, you'll be able to buy upgrades for your line. You'll be able to get a better boat. You'll be able to unlock new maps. And you'll be able to basically do new things. And the locations will change, and the actual visuals get even more beautiful. And you can do it at different times of day. So you can fish at night or day, and different fish will show up and stuff like that. And personally, I liked it a lot. We were looking at this point for a new relaxing game for my rotation. And I thought, you know, I dressed up for it. I brought out my fisherman's hat again for the first time in like years to try to drive some hype for it. It just didn't work. People were saying that they were more bored than entertained, even though there was an opportunity for people to hang out with me and talk and interact. Most people said, this is super boring. Is one that I think most of you kind of figured would be in the countdown. But I think at one point, we all thought that it was going to be in the other countdown. All right? This is a game that I feel was massively overhyped, was a game that sold solely for one purpose, which isn't a good reason, and a game that suffered from insane amounts of padding, and then had a really, really good point at the end, but you got to ask, what gives with the way that the game rolled out? Let me explain, ladies and gentlemen. The next game on our disappointing games countdown is Donkey Kong Bonanza on the Switch 2. Okay? So when the Switch 2 released in June of 2025, immediately the question arose, well, what games are we going to get for this thing? Because immediately there was only Mario Kart World and a bunch of ports. So when Donkey Kong Bonanza was released a month later, everyone jumped on it. Oh my God, it's a first-party title. It's apparently you had some of the game devs working on it who actually had worked on Super Mario Odyssey. So all of us who love Super Mario Odyssey was super duper excited for this game to come out. We heard that there were going to be brand new game mechanics. It wouldn't play like Donkey Kong Country, but something completely different. Everything was destructible. You could punch and dig your way through anything in the game, which is going to give a whole new element to the gameplay. It's fully going to utilize the graphical capabilities and the processing power of the Switch 2. This is something that never would have been possible on the Switch 1, right? It all sounds good, doesn't it? I mean, wow. All right. Sounds like the kind of game that I think is going to blow me away. I'm really going to enjoy, and we're all going to have a great time with. And to some extent, that's true. What you're seeing right now is the first hour of the game, where I went to the first room, and I got so hooked on the destruction aspect of the game that I literally, like, destroyed everything in it. Like, I was like, wow, I can't believe that everything actually is destructible. Now, yeah, there's limits to where you can break things in a room, like metal walls that you can see here past all of the dirt. But for the most part, it was pretty insane to see a game where you could just keep digging upwards and keep going up and destroying things. Almost like Bugs Bunny in a Looney Tunes cartoon, digging and popping out of the ground. You can do that in Donkey Kong Bonanza. There's almost limitless amounts of items you're looking for, whether it's giant golden bananas, pieces of gold that you can use to buy upgrades, whether it's the collectibles, which you could use to do other kinds of upgrades or more. You have a sonar. When you clap, you could see the items through the walls, which is really cool because it helps you to solve the puzzles and figure stuff out where that's weird stuff is hidden in the worlds. There's also animal transformations where you can turn into things like a zebra and run super fast, or you can become an ostrich that can fly, or you can become a snake that does a super jump because you spring up like a coil and bounce like a spring. And all of that sounds great on paper, doesn't it? In fact, I'll admit, when you first run into that stuff in the game, you're blown away. Look at my face. Look at my face. I'm actually genuinely happy there. I'm like, wow, this is so neat. I can't believe it. But there's a problem, all right? And the problem is very simple. That's the whole game. Everything that I just described, destroying things in order to find hidden items and doing a few transformations, is the entirety of Donkey Kong Bonanza. Are there some boss fights? Yes, but they're an afterthought. And a lot of them are kind of buggy and wonky because the Switch 2 can't handle the graphics very well. So during certain boss fights, the frame rate dips and the boss fights become chores because of that. But outside of that, every world in Donkey Kong Bonanza is almost exactly the same. You go into an area, you look around for hidden bananas, use your sonar to find items in the walls, you destroy everything around you to get the items, wash, rinse, and repeat. Now, there are some challenge stages where you're going to be challenged with platforming and stuff like that. The thing is, those challenges are not even representative of the core game. You can skip them all and still turbo through the game, and there's no problem. In fact, I would go as far to say that Donkey Kong Bonanza is insanely easy. It is one of the easier games that you'll probably ever play in the modern day. The game itself lasts about 20 to 30 hours, okay? The first hour is incredibly good. Then when you realize the second or third or fourth world, it's all the same, you're like, oh, well, the substances we're punching are different. It's lava, it's ice, it's sticky goo, it's poison, but you're still just breaking it all just to find items in the walls. And if they never innovate on top of that, what is the interest of the game? And the answer is there is none. You guys are enjoying. I'm not seeing many people trying to interact with me. That's why I'm just going ahead and continuing with the countdown. I did say this would be an interactive stream, but I'm just not getting many people here who are literally like talking to me. So that's why I'm just continuing on. Maybe people are just used to this countdown being the thing that I just do and don't talk to people. I don't know, right? Okay? All right. Continue as a follow-up to a game that I had previously played a couple years before, but it was sold as a standalone. That's why I'm counting this as a new game. Technically, it's kind of a DLC, but it was sold as a standalone game, okay? This was a game that originally, the original game I liked, although you could tell it didn't have a ginormous budget or whatever, but I felt like they did justice to the intellectual property. The game was fun. It was a good romp. It had, interesting mechanics, and in general, it was a fun filler playthrough. It certainly wasn't anything that I went crazy for, but at the same time, we had a good time. But then we played the follow-up last year, right? And this one, sadly, had a bad fate. Ladies and gentlemen, the next game on the countdown is a game that you may not even know that I play. It is called Robocop Rogue City Unfinished Business. What do you mean? Unfinished business? I didn't even know Phil played this. Well, you might not know I played it because I only played 2 parts. And it wasn't because the game was bad. And it wasn't because I wasn't having a good time with it. It was because the game was insanely buggy on PC. To show you what I mean, I'm going to go to the point where basically I couldn't play the game anymore. Well, if I could find it. Basically what happened was I would go to this particular terminal, and this terminal needed to be interacted with so that you could open a door. And there was nothing else you could do in the game. There was no other place to go. There was nothing else you could do. You had to interact with this particular terminal to open a door. So I interacted with the terminal, and every time that I did, my game would literally crash. And I was like, well, that's not good. What am I supposed to do if I can't interact with this particular terminal? In fact, I think this was the first time that this happened here. Maybe not. I don't know. It's weird because this is definitely the part. You could say this is a buggy mess on PC. Game over. But I can't seem to pinpoint the time when it happened. Oh, wait. Here it is. I can't believe what happened with this one. Okay. A tried and true series, which all of us have grown up loving. It's a staple, an absolute staple in this genre. A game that we were all hyped for when we heard about it was coming out. A game that we were all stoked for. And then this happened. So when you were asking me on the thumbnail for this video, what was the schoolgirl in a Japanese schoolgirl outfit? It was the main character protagonist of Silent Hill F. But the reason that Silent Hill F was a game that massively disappointed me this year wasn't the initial game design, wasn't the fact that the game was set in Japan, wasn't the fact that the game had so many departures from Silent Hill. It was the fact that the game turned the main character into a werewolf who then used combat abilities straight out of Devil May Cry to do combos and special attacks to kill enemies. Something that goes so against the core tenets of what Silent Hill is meant to be, so just forgoes anything that would be scary, that would be survival horror, that I had a hard time swallowing to the point where I just couldn't take the game seriously after this happened in the plot. And it gets worse and worse. For the record, this is initially when the girl transforms, but it actually gets worse where she gets more abilities and transforms further into a werewolf further into the game you go. It's terrible. It's horrible. It's completely off base for what Silent Hill's meant to be. It takes all of the survival horror element out of the game whatsoever. And by the end of the game, all you can do is shake your head like this and say, I can't imagine what they were thinking besides, we want to make Silent Hill a different kind of game to make more money. Because Silent Hill is an incredibly popular and prominent survival horror franchise. But when you turn yourself into a superhuman monster that beats the living crap out of enemies with your pimp hand, it's not scary anymore. The next game in my most disappointing games countdown of 2025 is Hades 2. And you might say, wait, what? Hades 2 is a great game. Hades 2 actually was Game of the Year contender. Tons of people love Hades 2. How could Hades 2 be one of your most disappointing games of the year? Okay? There's two reasons why. It has nothing whatsoever to do with the gameplay of the game. It has nothing whatsoever actually to do with my experience with said game. Okay? There's two reasons why I was very disappointed with Hades 2 in 2025. Reason number one, Hades 2 had an early release in 2024. The game was not yet completed. I was a person who purchased that game early and played the early access. I was having a ton of fun with it. But after streaming it 2 or 3 times, I was told by my audience, hey, Phil, hold off. Stop playing Hades 2 because that game's not done. And if you continue to play Hades 2, you're going to see parts of the game that are unfinished. You're going to basically get too far in the game. And then when the real game comes out, it's not going to make sense for you to play it because it's changed or it's different or you're going to have to start over and no one's going to want to see that. So I was urged by my audience to stop playing Hades 2 in 2024 when it was in early access. Then we were waiting and waiting. When will it actually have its official full release date, right? What I'm disappointed at is the way that they released this game. And what I mean by that is it had absolutely no buildup, no hype. It essentially pretty much almost shadow dropped. It was announced like, what was it, like a week, not even, maybe a week before it was coming out. Hey, it's coming out, full release. Wait, what? To make matters worse, it came out in the midst of the busy fall gaming season. Now, if it had come out in the middle of the summer and nothing else was going on, maybe then it wouldn't have been a big deal. But it came out in the midst of the busiest gaming season of the year. So, of course, people are going to want me to be playing the more higher profile games, the brand new games, over the game I've already played the early access to the year before. So, honestly, it just didn't get hype. So here I am playing it on my stream. I'm enjoying it and having a good time. The audience is disengaged. They're not having a good time. They're saying, we've already seen this. Why are you playing it again? Well, because I played early access. Well, you already played it. What? That's confusing. I feel like this game actually would have done better if it didn't have that crazy early access window like it did. Now, you might very fairly criticize what I just said and be like, but don't you know that Hades 1 had a very wide early access window as well, and it ended up being incredibly successful? Sure. And Hades 1 was a game that was a first entry to the series that no one knew about and wanted to give it a shot and understand what it was. So that early access window made sense. To be honest, some people might be shocked and some people might not be. Ladies and gentlemen, my next most disappointing game of 2025 is a game that I'm still playing, Call of Duty Black Ops 7. That is right. A game that I'm still actively playing, a game that I'm actually having fun with, and a game that I'm streaming on the late stream tonight on this very channel. And you might be like, what? Huh? Black Ops 7? What? I thought, no, you have to understand, I'm fair in this countdown, okay? Black Ops 7 is doing pretty good in my lineup right now. Now that I actually have good equipment and stuff that I'm using, I got surround sound headphones. I've got a great gaming keyboard and mouse, okay? I've got everything set up and I'm doing well in the game. I'm actually getting, good score streaks. And I'm actually getting a positive kill-death ratio. And the audience is entertained, okay? So why is it in my most disappointing list of 2025? Because it fucking sucks. The game is bad. This game is nowhere near as good as previous Call of Duties. They did everything wrong. They took away things that were great, like putting down mines or claymores to stop people from getting behind you. It's been removed from the game. Instead, it's replaced by crappy kill streaks of drones and fucking stupid technology nonsense that's garbage in the game. It's got dumb wall jumping that doesn't belong in Call of Duty. I could keep going. It's got poor hit detection. The connections are awful. It uses skill-based matchmaking, and it's worse than ever. How is it that in one round, I'm doing absolutely amazing against everyone, getting, mowing them down, getting the drop on them, getting tons of kills. In the next game, I fill someone with lead. They won't die, but then they don't raise their gun and I instantly die. I mean, I could just go on and on about the problems with this game and franchise. But Black Ops 7 is now the new example of how Activision / Treyarch / whoever is responsible for Call of Duty just doesn't care anymore. This game did not try to innovate, did not try to advance the formula. It just plays by paint by numbers, essentially. It has really awful game decisions with the weapons, with the kill streaks. It's just bad. It's genuinely not a good game. I have played so many better Call of Duties in the past. If anything, the one glaring thing about the game that proves it's bad is that it has legacy maps like Raid or Shipwreck. And when you play those maps, you realize, God damn, this game was much better when those maps were in the older games. Like when you played the old Black Ops on Raid, that was a much better experience. Now, you can't even set up to snipe because anytime that you set up to snipe, there's no way to put down a claymore or a mine to stop someone from getting behind you. And constantly people spawn behind you. It's almost impossible in this game to get a kill streak of more than 2 or 3 kills because anytime you kill one person, 3 more people are coming right around the corner to murder you or are already behind you. It's nostalgia bait, okay? And a franchise that I had asked for many years to have one of these kind of nostalgia collections was Mortal Kombat, because we had these kind of classic collections for Street Fighter before that had Street Fighter 2 or Street Fighter Alpha or Street Fighter 3, etc. We just had the Marvel collection. But Mortal Kombat had never really done that before. And I was excited when they announced the Mortal Kombat Legacy Collection because it sounded like they were giving the fans exactly what they wanted. A collection that had all the different versions of classic Mortal Kombat in it, all accessible with online multiplayer. And it was going to have this cool mode that kind of you go through the legacy of Mortal Kombat and stuff like that. Sounds good to me. I love Mortal Kombat. I would love to experience these games again and to be able to share them with an audience on YouTube, right? Sounds like a great idea. And I actually did go through this game playing pretty much all the old school Mortal Kombat, including 1 through 4. And then we actually did some of the horrible games like Mortal Kombat Mythology Sub-Zero and stuff like that, okay? So actually this collection made a good amount of great content for me, and I did enjoy covering it. However, you may notice I'm not playing it anymore, and you might wonder why on earth is this not in my, or not in my best games countdown, or why is it in my most disappointing games countdown if I liked it so much and I made good content out of it, right? Well, the answer is very simple. This collection was sold completely unfinished. When they released this collection, it had no actual functioning online multiplayer. What I mean by that is that they did have the ability to play it online against people, and they sold it that way. They said, oh, this collection has online multiplayer. But when you actually went to do it, you found out there was no actual lobby system. There was no actual ranking system. It was just, I want to play this game. Okay, search for a random opponent. It would maybe match you up against someone playing it, but if you couldn't find anyone, the game would then say, well, let's just match you up against anyone playing any of the games in the collection. Huh? So let's say, for example, I wanted to play Mortal Kombat Trilogy, which is what I'm playing right here in this video. Search for an online player. Oh, we couldn't find anyone. Here, play Mortal Kombat 1 instead. But that's a completely different game. Why would I want to play that? That's how this game functioned. So most people who wanted to play it online couldn't find any opponents and ended up playing the wrong game or never played it at all. In addition, the game had no crossplay whatsoever. So think about it. This game was sold on every console, right? Xbox, PlayStation, PC. I think it's even on the Switch too. So if that's the case, you have basically separated your player base into 4 platforms. Makes it even harder to find people to play because people might be playing on a different platform than the one you're playing on. So just the design of the game makes no sense. It's supposed to be a competitive, head-to-head fighter. You need online play. The game didn't have actual good functioning online play or any of the features that you would want in a game that has online play. So why say it had it and sell it like that? They did. They actually outright lied and said it was going to have those features, and then it didn't. Game that you thought, hey, they got a track record. This will be great. And in fact, this is a game that the game developer was already on this list, but now they're making a second appearance. Ladies and gentlemen, the next game on the most disappointing games countdown is The Outer Worlds 2. Why is The Outer Worlds 2 on this countdown? Well, you may not know this, but The Outer Worlds 2 was also made by Obsidian, the same people who made Avowed earlier in the year. And you might say, wait a minute, again? Yes. Yes. I'd like you to take a look at The Outer Worlds 2. Does it look familiar at all? The art style, the open world exploration, the environment's kind of looking cartoony and colorful. It kind of looks like something, doesn't it? Yeah, it kind of looks like Avowed, because it is Avowed. It's basically the same exact situation as Avowed, okay? The basic core elements of the gameplay of Outer Worlds 2 are sound. The difference between this game and Avowed is that Avowed plays like Elder Scrolls, and this one plays like Fallout, except without VATS, okay? It's gunplay. That's the difference, but it's still open world, RPG, looter, all that stuff together, okay? But what's the problem with The Outer Worlds 2? Problem number 1 is that it's The Outer Worlds 1 Part 2. It's not really The Outer Worlds 2, meaning it's almost exactly the same game. If you play this game, you're basically playing Outer Worlds 1 again, just with a tweaked plot. It feels exactly the same. I played it for, I think 2 streams, and both times I played it, I was like, I don't even feel like this is a new game. It really feels like it's the same game a second time. Same vibes, same kind of, stuff. The plot's different, and in fact, the plot's worse, which leads me to my second point. Just like in Avowed, if the plot of the game isn't good, then you're not going to get hooked on an open world RPG. The plot of this game is the 2 corporations that were in constant struggle in the first Outer Worlds have merged into one, and there's no more struggle. Now they're just the evil villain trying to take over and control everything in the galaxy. Oh, so the originality and the interest part of the plot, like, do you side with one corporation? Do you side with the other corporation? Do you side with no corporations? That whole thing's been removed. Now it's just corporations are bad. That's just the whole plot of the game. So immediately you took out the cool premise of the first game, and now it's just very cliche, very boring, but the gameplay elements are almost identical, and it just ends up being a complete waste of your time. The reason that this one hurt me bad is because this is a franchise that I was very much looking forward to playing again. This is a character that I think is a classic, one of the greats. And basically, everyone was hyped for this game for a very similar reason to another game in this countdown that we already talked about. Ladies and gentlemen, up next on my most disappointing games countdown for 2025, my second most disappointing game of the year, in fact, is Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. You might say, why is this in Phil's countdown? Why was this game so disappointing for Phil? All right. The moment you start playing Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, you realize something. This doesn't really feel like Metroid or Metroid Prime at all. You land on a planet, and during that sequence, there's already a giant fight going on between what appear to be almost space marines and aliens. So there's a big fight war going on. You're like, what is this, Halo? Like, what am I jumping into? Within an hour or two of playing, the characters are talking. You've got one of the characters that blabs all the time, seemingly for comic relief. And you're like, This doesn't feel at all like the spirit of what Metroid is supposed to be. Then you go to the first and second dungeons, and you realize these dungeons all look very samey. They don't have much life to them. They don't seem very interesting. Then you get into the combat, and the combat is very basic. Just lock on and dodge and shoot. Lock on and dodge and shoot. Then eventually there's a scan mechanic. Don't get me started on the scan mechanic. Literally, you have to scan everything in every environment on every screen in order to solve any puzzle, open any door, do anything. So 90% of the time, you just have the scanning visor on and you're just looking at items. Oh, something's happening? Close the scanning visor and just try to lock on and shoot wildly. Wash, rinse, and repeat. That's Metroid Prime 4 Beyond in a nutshell, at least the first 4 or 5 hours of it, because that's what I experienced. And I was insanely bored. It was just so weird because when you start booting up Metroid Prime 1 and you land on that world, right? Immediately you're greeted with something very Metroid-like. You're in an unknown place. You don't know what's going on. You're there isolated, so you get that feeling of loneliness, and you're there by yourself, and you have to survive, and all the odds are against you. You're immediately presented with, like, otherworldly creatures that are trying to kill you. You go one way, and it looks like a lava cave. You go another way, and it looks like a jungle. You go another way, and it looks like a technological room, but it's blocked. You can't go there yet. Very Metroid-esque, right? None of that is present in Metroid Prime 4. To no surprise to anyone, I don't think anyone was going to be like, oh, I can't believe that this is his most disappointing game. The game that's most disappointing for me was Mario Kart World. And you might say, all right, why? Phil, spill the beans. What's so bad about Mario Kart World? Is it the visuals? No, the visuals are great. I think it's actually the best looking game I played on Switch 2 all year, honestly. Is it the controls? No. I think the controls are great. Very responsive game. I actually played it just on the Joy-Cons. And I think that the game actually played very well. And I actually had a good time. Of course, now I'm having problems with the controls. As soon as I say that in the video clip, I have problems with the controls. Let's fast forward, okay? So, what actually is the problem, in my opinion, with Mario Kart World? All right? There's two problems with Mario Kart World. One has to do with offline play, and one has to do with online play. Let's start with the offline play, okay? Mario Kart World is the most expensive Mario Kart game ever, being sold at, I think it's $79.99 if I'm correct. It might be $69, but isn't it $79.99? And Nintendo justified this incredibly inflated price tag, stating, oh, it's totally worth that. 100%. Why? Because it has an open world now. Mario Kart World is just that, an open world. That's why we're calling it that. And in this open world, you're going to have all this content. You're going to have these challenges to do. You're going to have interactions with characters. There's going to be collectibles and fun things to do. It's a hub that you're going to drive around and you're going to see other players in. So it's totally going to be worth your time. None of that is true. Like everything I just stated is actually a complete lie. Mario Kart World does have an open world. It's empty. If you drive around the world, you'll find there's almost nothing to do. There are challenges like the one you just saw. Did you see how long it took me to complete that challenge? What was that, 20 seconds? And there's challenges like that all over the world. There are also collectibles and things in the game, okay? So why would you want to do these challenges or collect these collectibles? To get stickers. What are stickers? What do you need them for? You don't. They have no purpose whatsoever. They don't do anything. They don't grant you abilities. They don't unlock content, like they don't unlock characters. They don't unlock vehicles at all. Literally, the stickers are just for show to put on your cart. They don't do anything, supposedly. Like, they have no purpose in the game. So then why do you need to ever do the open world? You don't. Huh? Yeah, I'm serious. As you go around the open world, you start to realize there's literally no reason for you to ever play it. It serves no purpose. It's devoid of any kind of meaning, and it was put in there to just say, hey, guess what? It's there. Yeah, that's fine, but it's called quality over quantity. I understand that there is an open world in Mario Kart World, but you didn't give us a reason to do it. There's no story. There's no unlocks. Like, for example, if you played through the open world and every 10 challenges you unlocked a new character or a new cart or a new customization, then it would be worth it. That doesn't exist. There's no reason to ever boot this up. So I just don't understand what Nintendo was going for besides a bait and switch effort. Basically what they did is they promised everyone, hey, you're going to really get value out of the money you pay for this game because there's an open world now. Most people never use this open world for anything. It's a waste. They just, between matches, they just sit still. They don't even drive around. There's no point. So then why does it exist? No reason besides to make more money for Nintendo and charge you more money.